Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the podcast, the platform, the home to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Hell, your most authentic voice, period. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, meet the person of your dream, win billions of dollars. Can't guarantee the last two yet. We're working hard on those last two. But all the other ones, I feel good that we can deliver for you. We love the fact you continue to listen to us on Spotify and iHeartMedia, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts. And thanks also for tuning into the video version of the program too. That's made me really happy on our YouTube channel. So keep liking, sharing, subscribing. And folks, the reason that we get to deliver all of that stuff is because I bring on people who walk the walk. Today is absolutely no exception. I'm so excited that I can bring on today's guests. So what is it said? It has been said about Chris Eischen that he is a kick-ass dad and a passionate entrepreneur. Can I say that again? A passionate entrepreneur with a heart for helping others. I trust the source and I believe that implicitly. Away from that, helps kids, helps adults, helps in general. I've had the pleasure to know Chris now for, oh my God, I'm good, so fortunate. It's only been a matter of months, but it feels like years to me at this point. Chris Eischen, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited. I've been watching you for years on social. And so I think we met last year's Summit of Greatness, last year being 2022 in Columbus, Ohio. Started following you on social, started joining Toastmasters, working on my public speaking, inspired by the way that you present and the way that you speak and carry yourself. I was like in awe, and I'm like, I want to learn those skills. And so Toastmasters was my way of stepping into that learning.
I love that. And folks, if you're familiar at all with Toastmasters, then you know that you can get so much value from that. Not to mention, they are often tough classes. So, I mean, it's all very precise in regards to what they're teaching and instilling. So I love the fact, Chris, that you've taken that on. Here's where I really remember the relationship starting. And for me, I remember the meeting last year, and that was great. And last year at Summit was a blur for me because I was only there a night and a day. And folks, not talking in code. Summit of Greatness is Lewis Howes's events that are run. There's this annual event, as Chris said, in Columbus, Ohio. But if you follow Lewis Howes, and if you don't, you should. There's so many great byproducts, and it's most often led by the people that are there, including Chris. So I remember all the meetups, and everything kind of, as I said, felt like a blur to me because I was on an abbreviated schedule. This year, before we went back to Summit, we were Chris and I would be part of these Zoom meetings and setups that were going into it. And I felt like that's where the relationship started to accelerate in terms of, I really need to know more. And the details were starting to come through. Chris, how long have you been connected, whether it is, and I mean, of course, we're going to talk about each facet, but with greatness itself, how long have you been going, attending, believing, whatever the word is?
I've been in the work, as I'd call it, for about 10 years. Yeah, 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, like for me, so there's very few people. There's one kid that I know that was 19 when he started down the path of like personal development. And he took it as like, instead of going to college and learning the college courses, I'm going to go to University of Me and learn about me so that I can transplant myself into the world in the best setting that fits me. And I was like, well, I've never seen anybody else do that. I've only seen what people were taught. You go to school, you get good grades, you get good grades so you can get into a good college. You try to get scholarships or whatever you can, and then there's like coaching and all these like pushes towards that, right? And people to help you. And then you go to college and you get that degree, and then you go and you get that job, and you're like, why did you pick that degree? As far as my interaction with why people got the degree they got was based around pay. Well, these are my personality traits. Which one's going to pay me more? Then I'll go do that, right? Or they end up in a position where they're making, a pauper salary, and they're unhappy because they're broke all the time, right? So I kind of went down that pathway. It's like, man, and ended up in relationships and in situations that weren't necessarily the best for me, but it was what was in front of me. And so I was just kind of eating what was served to me, if you will, right? Instead of like choosing what I wanted from the menu of life. And I seen this kid Ryan just choose. It's like, wow, that's bold. It's like, what's giving you that level of confidence to just not do everything that everybody else is telling you to do? And he was talking about the journey of personal growth and self-development. And that to me opened my eyes to how this can actually impact people around me, because up until that point, I only saw how it affected me. I was seeing things through this bubble as opposed to like 360 and seeing how all the parts and components work together in the world. Does that make sense?
It does. And I love that you say that, because what you use the word in describing Ryan, right? As bold. And if I love that choice of words. For me, I'm probably like, I admire that so much now, but I don't think I would have admired that 10 years ago. One of the things that I'm so grateful for is that you keep, you get the chance to keep learning and evolving and realizing that. I love the way you describe the college path. For me, it's what is, if I heard you correctly, it's what personality traits suit, like, is it a more easy linear fit into one of the categories. And I get that. Mine for me was what it was, a combo of, at my numerous runs at Villanova University, where, as I've said, it was 20 years and 2 flunkouts of that quest to get a 4-year degree. And I hit every major, every business major. I tried every one of them. You know what I mean? Like, did it until no. And then finally, and this is why I think what you just brought up is so enlightening, I just wanted the degree. And I didn't even care at this point what it was in. Mine is an arts degree with a minor in communications. And I'm like, great. Right. So I would have looked at Ryan as I would have looked also as weird. And that's the part. Shame on me. You know what I mean? More like I'm saying, that's weird. I don't get that. So you see it as also a bold choice, which is pretty wonderful. I love the fact, because I feel like, look, you've done a hell of a lot professionally, not to mention personally as well too. And so you could never say that the path you took is like, was a wrong move. I'm just curious, like, as you were making decisions growing up and then going through the college route, as you described, and trying to find the right fit, would the emotion, one of them anyway, that you were feeling, be more like confidence, fearlessness? How were you in terms of making those decisions back then?
Well, back then it was robotic. Yeah, it was like whatever I saw other people doing, or whatever the narrative of what I had been told was the path. So I kept doing the university thing. Went to University of Toledo, racked up a bunch of loans, and then was like, I'm gonna go work this job to pay for some of this stuff, because the last thing I want to do is graduate with a $250,000 debt.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was like, I didn't want to sign up for more classes until
Mhm.
I was like confident that I'm going down the right path.
Mhm.
So there was like, because I'm looking at that bill going, man, I'm gonna have to pay this at some point. And
Right.
I feel like a lot of kids, and I could be wrong here, but this is just the sense that I get, is they don't even look at the expense. They
Mhm.
just they're focused on that piece of paper. Well, this is like what I have to do.
Mhm.
If I want to have financial success and all of
Right.
those things, this is the path I have to take. And
Mhm.
in fact, in the lower income communities, they give them free college. If you graduate high school, you get college for free.
Right.
But the thing is like, and this is where colleges are just raking in the cash.
Yeah.
And you said it. 40 years of trying to get that piece of paper. How many tens of thousands of dollars have you
Oh,
given to that?
oh, my heart hurts when you even say that out loud.
Yeah, it's a house, a
But it's
car.
true. It's true. And I felt like for me, the worst part in that process of young, like kid to young adult, right? I mean, that in that process, that there was so much external judgment in that sense. And so I asked you what like you the emotion you said robotic. One of the things that I was for me, it was fearful because I remember questioning it and then just not shutting down, but it's like, okay, I'll
Fall in line.
yeah, you fall in line.
Yeah.
So that was to me, it was like it was often fear based in terms of there. So I just did it, and it's like and so I love the fact that you were seeing things and things were or you were seeing people and people were resonating uh, in that regard. What was family like for you?
So what's interesting is my mom was a teacher. This
Okay.
this cracks me up. So my personality is business, right?
Right.
Like I was born to be an entrepreneur. I was born to be a, presenter, public speaker,
Oh, yeah.
leader, thought provoker, whatever you want to label it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was in me when I was first grade.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my mom saw it, knew it, everything. In high
Wow.
school, she taught business. She taught Business Professionals of America, if you're familiar with
Yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
and never once talked to me about it. I didn't even know that this thing existed until I think I was like 23,
Okay.
and she had some event going on and she needed some judges, and she's like, "Hey Chris, would you come judge this event
Mm-hmm.
for up at the for the thing?" And I'm like, "Well, what is this?" Like, "Wow, this is awesome. Like, did this just start? Like, I wish they had this when I was in school." And she's like,
Right.
"They did. I ran it." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, what do you think I did on um every third Saturday of the month?" I'm like, I had no idea. I have no idea what you did. You never talked
Right.
about it.
You went to work.
Yeah,
That's what you did.
yeah. So to me, that was like the disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other thing is, I'm the type of person as I observe, and then I think about like not just how do I fix the solution for me, but like long term,
Right.
right?
Ah.
So I see this leak in the pipe, and the
Mm-hmm.
the leak is this disconnect between mom and dad, or
Okay.
mom and kid, child,
Yeah.
or child not aware of the information that's available to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like for schools and for those organizations, it's like, how do they connect with the kids? How do they raise the awareness level that
Mm-hmm.
these things exist for the kids? And I think one is just repetition.
Got it.
They got to be involved in the schools. But
Mm-hmm.
secondly, it's up to the parents. And that's where I started down this journey, was talking to parents with the podcast, Kick
Mm-hmm.
Ass Dad.
Yeah.
And you had said, I was a kick ass dad. I was a kick ass dad because I started a podcast to inspire and motivate and teach parents and
Mm-hmm.
dads specifically
Right.
on how to be the best influence for their children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what we are. We are the influence. We are the role models that they have, and hopefully they go out into the world and be productive and contribute to society's betterment, right? At least I think that's most of our goals.
It's a damn good one. And folks, even and I definitely want to come back to this, but I was going to say just as a heads up that Our guest happens to be a digital marketing consultant, business leader, marketing, like revenue generator, and all of this too, which is what I love about this entire package, which is you're not just the salesperson, you're not just the life coach, you're not just the business leader, you're not just a content creator, but you've got this passion, like you say in your own bio, this passion in terms for helping other people with this heart. Here's the question in that regard, which is, as you were launching back then, so you're in your 20s, right? If I'm doing the math right, you're still in your 20s when you launched the podcast and the initiative.
No, the podcast and stuff came in my 30s.
Okay, talk to me about what happened. Right,
but
and
there
that's
was this.
what I want to ask you about.
Yeah, there was this level of awareness. Like, so I went basically all the way up into my 30s in this, robot, what I call like robot mode, where I did everything I was supposed to do. Right, I had a job, I paid the bills, I took care of my family, and everything else. And I come home. It's a Wednesday night, and the house is empty. There's no couch, no bed, kids' clothes, everything except for my clothes were there, but I had nowhere to sleep, nowhere to sit, no kitchen table. And it's like, that's a gut check, right? Like that, to me, that was the catalyst that I needed to go, hey, let's hold this giant mirror up to my life and what my results are. Because I'm in this moment right now, like, oh my God, what have I done?
Right.
To be in this place. And then I realized, well, it's a multitude of things. And it goes back to that day I graduated high school and was let out into the world to determine what I wanted to do with myself.
Right.
And I just kept doing everything that everybody said I should do. And I wasn't finding happiness. I wasn't finding fulfillment. I'm like, is this it? Is this what I have to look forward to for the rest of my life until I'm 6? To me, 60 was like, I'm going to be dead at 60.
And it's funny, right? But I get it, right?
Yeah, it's like, and then now, I'm like in my mid 40s, like, I hope I like.
Yeah, right. Oh, trust me. And the host of the show is like, well, I don't want to keep looking over my shoulder to see. Is it my day? But yeah, it's like, so here's when you walked into that room, into that empty room, how long did it take you? I don't mean hours, but what I mean is, how long did it take you to get through to push past I can't believe this is happening, that it's here and this is in front, to I have to do it's twofold. And folks, as I'm literally looking at my guest whiteboard behind him, here's again quite the innovator in regards to laying out plans. But how long did it take you to go from the shock, disbelief, anger, whatever the emotions were, to fear, to, okay, I need to do something, and then actually do something?
Well, when it first happened, I thought, oh, this is you're like in like disbelief, like, oh, she'll be back tomorrow kind of a deal. And I'll be honest, like she was playing a game with me. She wanted to move out so that I'd chase her, so that I'd make a big deal. But literally everything I had done up until that point had been for the betterment of the family.
Right.
Nothing had been done for me. So when I'm sitting in this house by myself, I'm pissed. Yeah, I'm pissed. Like, I have worked my ass off for you to leave. I've done. What more do you want from me? I've literally given you everything, all the money I have, all my time. My entire life has been going to this job. I was working night shift, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. I lived my job to pay the bills, to pay for the house, to pay for the things, and then you're gonna leave. So to me, it was like, you know what? Here's this is what I said to myself. You leaving is my opportunity to focus on me.
Love.
Like, cool, peace, have fun, go do whatever you're going to go do. Discover, this is what you needed. You needed that space and that time. I'm going to take just as much advantage of it, because I was a full-time dad of 4 kids. So now I went from a full-time dad of 4 kids and a wife to single for, I got the kids on the weekends because I worked, night shift during the week.
Right.
They were at school during the day, except my daughter. I had her during the day, but the other three kids were off at school. So it's like, I'm going to figure out me. And so that's where I just started figuring out like, well, how do I do that? What does that look like? Right. And like, I don't know, I'm going to buy some books. So I, go buy some books, start reading John C.
Remember
Maxwell.
any books that resonated to you more than others?
It was like leadership, like how do I become the leader of my own life? And there was something, I don't have it here behind me. I have like a stack of books here, but John C. Maxwell was the first author that I really dove into. And his stuff was all like contextual leadership. Like, to be a great leader, you need to have these qualities. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, then I'm at my job, right? Like, how do I be a leader in my job? Well, the job I'm in is union. It's like, I'm not bumping anybody out of the line, and I'm not, unless I go to college and get that engineering degree, I'm not going to move up into that area. So it's like, I'm just kind of stuck in this position.
Right.
And this isn't, and they're talking about, oh, what's your vision for your life? And it's like, well, like, nobody here in this entire plant of 2,200 people, not a single one of those people is living the life that I want. Right. And so I had to look around and into the world and go, who is living the life that I want?
Right.
And go, that guy is, I like what he's doing. It's like, how's he doing it? And that was the guy, David T.S. Wood.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar.
Familiar, not fluent, familiar.
So he is a motivational speaker. He does a lot of like workshops on, owning your voice, empowerment, that kind of thing. And he does a lot of his work within the MLM world, multi-level marketing world. Because the key thing that in the multi-level marketing world that people need is that confidence and everything to go out and share their business with confidence, right? So that's where he works at, or his primary market. So I connected with him and started doing what he said. He said, challenge yourself, do something that scares you, that you never even thought possible for you. Start a podcast. And then Kick-Ass Dad became, I started talking to some other dads. And, we were going to start this podcast, Kick-Ass Dad. Do you want to be a part of that? Yeah, sure. Okay, boom. Start writing email campaigns, start doing, how do we grow this podcast? At the time, this is 2012. There wasn't Facebook marketing.
No, there wasn't even half the platforms, let alone Facebook marketing.
Right. Yeah. So basically you had LinkedIn, you had Facebook, I think Twitter, that Instagram, I think, was a thing, but it was like not a Facebook thing. It was down the road. So anyway, so we start this podcast. We're grassroots growing it through Facebook. We end up with 20,000 listeners to our show. Now we're going to teach people how to run their own podcast. We launch a podcast mastermind. We learn how to monetize, make some revenue from the podcasting world. It's like, okay, this is cool. We start teaching people how to do it, and we get, revenue from that. And then we see all these cool podcasts. Then crowdfunding becomes this thing. And so as we're recording the podcast, this whole time I'm learning, I'm working nights, working at the job, working 12-hour shifts, coming home with like barely any sleep, hitting record. I have at work the whole day, those 12 hours, I made all my notes. So when I was ready to go, like roll up to the computer, record, hey, what's going on? Do my thing. And then it's like, all right, like load it and fall asleep.
Question: when you were doing like in that rhythm, I'm doing what I need to do in regards to the job. Then I'm back and I'm dead tired. And trust me, I can feel that. And if anyone, I'm sorry, I'll say that better, as anyone who are entrepreneurs knows that feeling of I just don't feel like it, but you do it anyway. Which felt more true to you when you were doing it? even though you're dead tired, and your butt's dragging and all that stuff? What felt more true to you when you were doing it?
All I could think about was how could I get out of the job so
Got
that
it.
I could spend my time doing this?
Got it. Ah,
Because
okay.
I was like, because all those things that I wrote about
Right.
was my therapy going through my divorce.
Mm-hmm.
It was all these things that I was uncovering and discovering about me
Right.
from when I was a kid to,
Mm-hmm.
how I communicated to, how I was showing up as a husband and how I was showing
Yep.
up as a father. It's like, dang, look at the string that
Yeah.
ties these things all together, right? That make me.
Mhm.
And how many of those stories aren't my freaking story?
Right.
That's what mom told me. That's what
Other people.
John and Jacob, not John, like,
I know.
all
That's
these
okay. I got you.
Bills and Susans in my
Right.
life, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
telling me all these things. I mean, I can remember my dad saying one thing to me one time, and then that me making a decision from that point on that I was not going to do that thing.
What was
And
that?
that was okay. So eighth grade, I won class clown.
Great. Is that good?
Yeah, I
I was
thought it
gonna
was
say, I think
good.
it's good. I like it.
My dad says, if you're a clown, who's gonna ever take you serious?
Oh wow.
I was like, oh, like here I was proud. I won class clown.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the feedback I got from my dad. I love stand-up comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I remember coming home, right? I'd ride the bus, walk home, and I was
Yeah.
home by myself for the
Mhm.
first 3 hours, like a lot of us 80s kids were,
Sure.
you know? Um, so I'm sitting there and I'm watching Comedy Central. Back then, Comedy Central was nothing but stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm watching stand-up. I want to be a stand-up comedian. I'm not that that kid that like made fart noises and got class clown. I was the kid that would like wait for the right moment and then lay that joke and get the whole class rolling.
So you did the work. You literally did
Yeah.
the work, man. All right. It's crazy to me. And by the way, folks, for those watching and listening, I literally that actually hurt my heart because it's like, I'll bet you your dad had no idea of the power of that statement. I'll bet he had no idea that it was just a minor whatever to get you back in line or whatever dads did. And I'm older than you, so it's like I get the but these are the things. That's why it's like when we talk about the arc to authenticity, it's like, so in my mind, that hurt my heart because that would be an immediate case of shutting someone's true personality. I'm not shut it down, turn it off. Literally just flip the switch. And now you've got to be something other than you, doing whatever anyone tells you to do. As you're building this new blueprint, remind me, I'm doing the math. So you're in your 30s now, right? The podcast is going and you're starting to do these things. And so what you build the podcast, you've got the crowd fund, you've got, like I said, you've got the funding going. You're generating, if I saw correctly, millions of dollars in regards to crowdsourcing. Who did you turn to at that point to help you make decisions? Who was your support base, or was it all you?
That's where I struggled.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to podcasts. David was so gracious that he'd message me back and forth.
Right.
He'd invite me out to events, and we go to his hotel room and chat. Like, I mean, he is a fantastic mentor. However, like with everything that I was doing, he's busy doing his own thing. I'm busy doing my own thing. He's in Canada. I'm over in Toledo.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm trying, I'm just looking for mentors. I'm looking, and I found some local people, part of a service corps of retired entrepreneurs.
Thank you.
And I took them.
Thank you. Literally, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. And they're in your area. They're a nationwide company, organization, and they're there to help entrepreneurs like figure out the next steps, build that business plan, whatever the case is for you. But I reached out to SCORE because at this point we had made $7 million on in our first. This was our first 8 months of crowdfunding, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing with this. Like, this is blew up way out of my league, right? So I'm turning to these guys. Well, this guy Owens Corning, Owens, Owens, Illinois. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, they
Oh,
make
that.
shingles and um, uh, insulation and like a bunch of stuff for construction.
Right.
They've got
Right.
thousands of different SKUs
Mhm.
and things. And Norm, the guy I was working with, his job was the marketing and branding and
Okay.
all that.
Okay.
So I'm like, dude, he's gonna know
Hmm.
everything, at scale, right? We are, this little crowdfunding. This was an idea.
Hmm.
Now we're at $7 million within 8 months. At the end of the year, we had been at 13.5. We were in
Hmm.
negotiations with Procter and Gamble for
Yeah.
a buyout
Right.
of a lot of money,
Hmm.
more than I'd ever dreamed of in
Right.
a year.
Hmm.
Um, and so, it was like getting the information and the stuff from them. Now, I wasn't the CEO of the company. I was the director of marketing. So I only had control over marketing. Um, anyway, that particular business ended up going bankrupt
Yeah.
and going out of business.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, sure, but
Yeah.
as,
And
as it,
this is why it's like one of the things I keep realizing is that there are point people. Like, for instance, I wanted to go back to like it's funny as you're speaking about all that and the way that you've built up your own. I'm sorry, you were building your initial blueprint. I'll say that better. That I'm thinking of that kid Ryan, right? And I keep going back to him because it's like, so one of the things that I think is really important in regards to the sense of one of the things that you do specifically, Chris, which is give back. I mean, give back, and at all levels. That is like kids, adults, groups, men, women, young or older. It's because it's crazy. Those numbers were crazy to me, what you just batted out in 2012. Now everybody's got a podcast. I mean, there's some good ones like this one, but I mean that it's so easy to take those steps. It was really hard. But the sense then that it's like, okay, you're all by yourself. Ryan literally is probably getting ostracized. Like, what's this weirdo doing? Not focusing on his, science and history. He's, what I mean, building a life. And you're taking it on in your 30s. What after that knockdown, which is quite serious, as you just said, everything goes bankrupt at this point. What the hell do you do?
well, that was, yeah. I mean, for me, that was just one project I was working on.
One
It
project.
was, yeah. I mean, it was like all of these different things kept
Right.
kind of falling into my lap. It was
Yep.
really interesting because I did the podcast and we had the success with the podcast
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
while I was working at GM.
Right.
I found a way to leave the factory job. So I was like, oh, hey, I can make money online. It's
Right.
like, so
Right.
then I started taking on different projects.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the thing with it, when this project fell through, a lot of fingers were pointing at me.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting, when there was 5 of us that were making this whole project run.
Right.
And it's like, they're like, make more money. We're losing money here. We need you to make more money. And it's like, well, the way that everything's cycles. And it's like, we just went through the holiday cycle. It's like, what do you want me to do? I can't make more money in January than we did in December.
Right.
That's just,
it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. And they're like, well, we made plans based on this happening. And it's like, well, that was crazy. You should have talked to me about that before making those plans.
Dreaded revenue projections and business plans that it's like that are made up so often with just made up numbers and so they have to point a finger. So they point at you. What'd you do?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? Like you want to point. I mean, here was the reality of it. I had consulted with people that understood what scaling looked like.
Right.
A product. They were giving me advice. I was as the director of marketing, I'm still not the CEO of the company.
No.
I'm just in charge of what we're putting out marketing wise, really.
That's
right?
a department, not the whole company. It's a department. Right. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So like I was actually the digital marketing director, not even
division of the marketing department.
Yeah.
Got
so the CEO and the COO and then the CEO's wife
Right.
all had a meeting and decided to do these things.
Mhm.
And here I'm getting advice from these people, and they're suggesting we do these things. So
Right.
then when we come to the company meeting, my suggestion is the opposite of what these other three already decided to do.
Right.
And so it's like, well, okay, I guess I'm along for the ride at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, things aren't working because your marketing. It's like, what do you mean, like my marketing? Like, I don't know. You guys, sky high.
Yeah.
And sure, I'm sure there's areas where I could have done something different, So I always look at like my opportunity for growth in those situations.
Oh,
But
love it. Mm-hmm.
but as a consultant, and that's what I was. I mean, I was the director of marketing, but I was like consulted,
Mm-hmm.
brought on as a consultant originally. So it was like kind of this weird position.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I give my advice and tell you what I think we need to do, but at the end of the day, you're telling me like you're giving me the budget, you're giving me the what you're willing to do here,
Yeah.
and I'm doing what I can with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so at that point, I left the company. The company ended up
Yeah.
going bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I started consulting other companies,
Mm-hmm.
and then I decided I want to start my own business.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
And learning really. So I was consulting, helping other people grow their businesses, and had a lot of fun doing that. Worked with a bunch of different products
Yeah.
and projects.
Mm-hmm.
Got to travel, do some things. But that was the thing, is I got to this point where I was kind of back where I was at the beginning of this journey, is that life had just kind of taken me down this pathway, and I wasn't choosing in that journey each
Mm-hmm.
time. Right.
Yeah.
I was essentially following the money, but
Yeah.
at the time it didn't feel like I was choosing the money. It was just like, I'm learning something new. And it's like, oh, look at this. And then it's like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at this. Well, at the end of the day, I'm making millions of dollars for all these people. And I'm paying my bills, but like, I didn't take equity in any of those companies.
Right.
And so like, once my contract was over, my pay was done. And it's like, oh man, like I haven't actually built any wealth for myself, which is
Happens
fine.
a lot, by the way. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
But the theme seems to be, for me, that even if the road it gets weird, how to course correct. So it's like, okay, so now it's like, all right, I'm going to take the reins. It's like, how did you build? Like for you, there was a couple things. I mean, there's a lot in play. Knowing you and who you are and what you do, there's a lot of different spokes, if you will. But one of the things that I realize is that it often all comes back to that sense of whether it's gathering funding, gathering people, gathering resources. How now, and I don't mean now 2023, but maybe it's like, all right, so you get this chance to have this clean slate and to build stuff. What are the priorities for you in the building? Like, what matters to you right now in the building?
Well, the first thing I look at is like, where are my skill sets? And this is like what I coach, like our youth as well.
Exactly.
It's like, what are you naturally good at?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that like I've been resistant to is that people are drawn to me naturally to some fashion. I'm not saying I'm some rock star famous, guy. When I walk in a room, everyone's like, oh, but there is, you have 10 people walk into a room, and there's going to be somebody that stands out to them.
I know the feeling. Absolutely. I get that. In regards to, I
have no idea why that is,
yeah.
but I am that person that people seem to resonate with.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I've just taken that feedback. When I had the podcast, I was getting all this feedback from the podcast. Like, why? I don't understand. And instead of just asking why, just like accept what it is as it is.
Right.
And say, well, what do I want to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the like Spider-Man quote, with great responsibility, or with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. And
so I think about that as like, well, if people are already listening to me naturally, like there's something about me that creates that. So if they're doing that, like, how do I better communicate How do I work on me to be able to deliver messages that I care about, right? So then I'm looking at the things I'm passionate about, the things I'm good at, where those intersections are, and then generating possibilities from there, from that place, as opposed to, the college, like what are my,
Curriculum.
what am I good? I'm good at math. Well, you're going to be an engineer. I hate math though. I hate it. I'm good at it, but I hate it. Well, so that's why we're going to look at what am I innately good at, but also where are my passions, and brainstorm and think about where those intersect, and come up with a list of possibilities, right? And then from that list of possibilities, now we can take our values, like the things that we want in our lives. I want to make a certain amount of money. I want to be able to be home, or I want to travel, or I want to, whatever those things are for you. Now that you've had this list of possibilities, now which one of those possibilities matches with your ideal life, right? And your value system. And then start from that place. Now let's look at what's it require for you to actually be that thing. You found out, for me, I wanted to be a pilot. I was like, so senior year of high school, I got my pilot's license. Got my pilot's license. So then worked at the airport. But then the airport said, well, we're not going to give you this discount that we gave you before. You're going to have to pay for it. Oh, well, now I don't make enough money at the airport. Now I got to go get another job. And now you take that other job. Now I don't have enough money, or I don't have enough time to fly. And I'm like, man, how do people do this? How do they get their pilot's license, become professional pilots,
and fly?
Yeah. Like I can't work at the airport and fly. So how did they do this? So I started researching it. They join the military. Or they live a pauper's life while they build those hours.
Gotcha.
And they literally do. They make like $30,000, $40,000 a year until they can bump up into that next airplane to where they actually make a livable salary. And then you're talking a decade that you're stuck at that salary.
Easy. Yeah. If you're selected, and it might be more than a decade,
Right.
So
yeah.
I love your vision is clear. Folks, one of the many things that as I've gotten the privilege of knowing Chris and being a friend of Chris and an admirer, is I was also going to add too, one of the byproducts of your thought process, it has become, to me, your action process and the shareable action process. Folks, one of the groups that I now know Chris Eischen from is called Inspiring Elevated Habits. And so I don't know that from anything before. Oh my God, your shirt's beautiful, by the way. Even the colors rock. But it's like walking billboards are awesome. And I think that's, but here's the thing. I'm wondering, is that like ultimately when you were thinking, so how do I get out of this situation of, I have a pilot's license, but I can't fly. And I have, I love science, but I can't be a scientist. You know what I mean? I sit here with this stuff. Are the habits that you are formulating and sharing, is that important to this equation? And if so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so after doing all, living it, experiencing it, going through it myself, I also became a life coach. I coached youth. I coach adults. And so it's like I started to see these success principles played out, right? And one of the things, and Craig and I,
my God, Craig Mills. You better be listening to this, Craig. And watching this. Love Craig Mills. Yep.
Yeah. So he's my good friend and now business partner. Right. We launched Inspiring Elevated Habits as just a place to create conversation around elevating our habits. It's like we don't want this mundane life. So come here, get inspired, get motivated to do something different. Well, in that, we got together and said, hey, these are the things that we found. Craig is a very successful salesperson. He's been in multiple industries and created huge success in all of those industries. So he took what he's learned, me and my marketing and my
Right.
coaching and development,
Oh.
and we brought those tools together and we built a success planner
Mm-hmm.
and a workshop, a
Mm-hmm.
training.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an ongoing training.
Mm-hmm.
We're literally building the pages and the website for that right now, to start onboarding. Our goal is to start onboarding people by the end of November. So hopefully December 1st, we'll be able to, as long as I can get everything built in time.
Well, right. But it's as you learned, December is a good time of year to have things rolling better than January, but in terms of a business model. But anyway, I love it. So you've got this in the pipeline. What would be the things that matter to you in regards to the model that you're creating? Why should people care about
For
this one
one, that
as to others?
there's so much value to be had. So, if you're at all one of those people that are feeling a little lost, or maybe you're in a career or working a job that it's just not that fuel to your passion, and
Right.
you're looking for that passion, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to quit your job to find that passion.
Mm-hmm.
But the first step is exploring where those passions are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then building up and formulating goals and a plan for your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the most important piece of all of it, is like decide what you want and go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And start building out that plan, because none of this life is a have to.
Mm-hmm.
You can I can tell you story after story of how somebody was born with nothing and they're billionaires today.
Mm-hmm.
It happens all the time. So your circumstances is not the thing that's holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically having that vision.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's holding you back.
Every day when I watch, like if you're on social media, and you should be, like for this reason, is that there tends to be right now there's a cycle of a 7-day. Today we're focusing on spirituality or finances or your wellness or what have you. I find it, the questions that you ask are really on point. It's fun, folks. I'm holding this up because literally another thing that we get to do. We brought up Craig Mills. Craig Mills, we love you. And Chris Eischen led this book club. We are fairly deep in, about ready to wrap up the book. But I think one of the things that matters to me in terms of, Chris, the way that you operate, and we were talking about accountability, and forgive me, I lost my train of thought. That's like that the accountability part. What I realize about you is that you know how to ask questions. And I find that to be really empowering, because I think so often, I remember talking about this the other night, which was, accountability for me sometimes could be like finger wagging. And so what are some of the questions that if somebody comes to you stuck, like you said, I'm stuck, what are some of the things that you want to know? You already expressed the one, well, what are you naturally good at? What else are questions that you might ask somebody to at least get an assessment, not necessarily make a decision,
Yeah, the basic question
Yeah.
that is the hardest for people to answer is, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
It's real easy to list out like, oh, I want a house, I want a car, I want a motorcycle, I want a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the wealthiest people in the world that have all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
if that brought them true satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is like, what do you want? What do you really want? Most people want love, joy, acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
and so it then becomes more about, how do we create more community, more opportunity for that joy and connection? So typically it becomes less about the revenue generation and more about that heart connection,
Mm-hmm.
and in that passion or whatever that is that drives you and inspires you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can connect that, the money will flow through
Mm-hmm.
whatever that passion is. And the reason for that is, when you love something and you're passionate about something, you give it your 100% effort.
Yeah.
When was the last time you went to the Dollar General and had your cashier just like crushing it. And that's not to dog any Dollar General.
No, right. Yeah, I understand.
But the point being is they're making minimum wage. They're not there out of passion at any means. And so mostly my experience is like, you just rather use the self-checkout machine because you don't want to deal with the attitude from the employees. So
amazing that I'll rather not deal with a person. And yeah, I got it right. You brought, and earlier today you were like, when you were talking about just dragging tired from the union job at GM and then going and then all of a sudden like lighting up to host your podcast. It's like, I think you already answered this. I just, like I said, wanted to be clear in this regard, which was this, that you said, like, you asked the question, well, what do you want? It's hardest one to answer. How do you get people to answer the question?
Keep asking
it. That's awesome.
Spend time in the question until you can get your brain to stop thinking. That's the key. It's like if you can get a person to stop thinking and just let their authentic self come to the surface, instead of like narrate or what's the word, like they're editing what they want, what they're gonna say before it comes out. Okay, all these internal voices that tell me I can't say XYZ. I can't talk about people's finances. I can't talk about money, like politics, abortion, right? Like there's certain things we can't discuss.
Right.
And so we're going to filter all that stuff before it actually leaves our mouth. Stop that. You got to stop that reaction to hold back and just let it flow. Journaling is a huge piece that can support that. Is if you just write, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And just write and let the motorcycle and the TV and the couch and the car and the house and the lake and the trips, let all those things come out and just keep going until the reality comes out, like the real things, right? The deeper pieces.
What does authenticity mean to you now? For you,
sharing what,
you.
It's like just sharing what's in my heart, not reading from a script. Like none of this. One thing I love about this, John, I want to thank you for this, is that we didn't do this big like preemptive conversation about what we were going to talk about.
Nope.
There's no scripts. There's no bullet points.
Nope.
This is straight from the heart.
Yep.
I'm hearing you. I'm giving you my attention. You're hearing me. You're giving me my attention, and we're responding to one another.
Exactly.
So that's authentic.
I love that. And so I feel like, so you now, in addition, like business consultant, blueprints, whiteboards, you coach adults and kids. So first off, from a personal level, what's family life? Let's do that again. What's family life like for you now, Chris?
My wife's a teacher. So I remarried after the coming home to the empty house.
Well, I'm asking.
She's a teacher. She's awesome. She's fun. She's energetic. What was kind of cool about our coming together is I had some aunts and my mom were like, we really like your cousin Nicole's maid of honor. She's a lot of fun. She's really cool. I'm going, was going through my divorce and just kind of like this place. And I saw her being all like bubbly at the wedding. And so I was like, I'm going to talk to this girl, not even wanting to be in a relationship, just looking for somebody fun to hang out with, like trying to find something to do with the time I didn't have the kids,
Right.
And I didn't want to be around the mentality of the people that I was at work with, because that was that union, and it just it wasn't vibing with what I was trying to create. And so I met her and we got married, and my son's 22, he's off in the Army now, and my daughter's 14, and she's a 14-year-old. I don't know if you've had kids.
I've got nieces and nephews, and as soon as you hit that number, it's like, okay, got it. It's 20.
That's whew.
Right. But let me ask you, if the 14-year-old says to you, I won the class clown award at school, what would you say?
Yeah, so that's huge. My
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing is because there was some stuff that she brought to us,
Yeah.
my wife and I,
Yeah.
intentionally because she knew of the support that we have for
Mm-hmm.
her.
Mm.
Uh, and
Mm.
that's my
Mm.
thing is like supporting her at whatever is true for her,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what's true for her today might not necessarily be true to her tomorrow because
Right.
she's in that discovery stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to give her space and grace to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
The role as father is much more complicated than the role of mentor
Mm-hmm.
or coach
Right.
because there is so much emotion involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's hard to just take that step back and not allow myself to be so emotionally attached to it. But I get that emotional reaction sometimes still, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just man, noticing it. Is that how I wanted to? Is that what I wanted to create? No, and just giving myself grace and moving forward with it. Doing the best I can every day. And I think the biggest key as a parent
Yeah.
is like just having the best of intentions. You got to show up with your best effort.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not applying that oxygen mask, if you're not taking care of you,
Oh.
you will not
Mm-hmm.
be able to reach that goal that you have of how you want to show up for them.
Mm-hmm.
It 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 does not work. If
Mm.
you are strung out, if you're stressed, if money's an issue, things are
Mm.
going
Yeah.
wrong in life, you will take that out on the people around you and the ones closest to you. You've got to get that stuff. You got to get yourself taken care of. You've got to get structure into what that is, life is for you, so that you can be the example to your kids. And maybe that's I'm telling,
Mm-hmm.
but that's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Is if I'm teaching my kids chaos, my kids will be chaos.
Mm-hmm.
If I can teach my kids calm,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be the example of that. Doesn't necessarily mean they're always going to choose it, but they'll have seen it modeled.
I think it's beautiful. And then two more questions. Number one, which is in my mind, which just came to me, which is again, I'm going to go back to the early example. That's family, and you just said, hey, look, it's because there's more skin in the game. Literally, in this case, it's harder in regards to family than in regards to being a mentor. But then, all right, so go to the mentor side, and I want to go back to. And by the way, I hope Ryan's making $1 billion right now. I hope Ryan's making $1 billion and influencing a truckload of people. But for any Ryan that comes to you, whether it's a kid or an adult, and says, I would rather focus on this than that, how do you help them?
Help them discover, uh, this term comes to mind.
Yeah.
What will this require of me?
Mm.
So I want to be a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. What's that going to require of you? If those are the things that you want, what's that going to require, and how can you get that built into your plan?
Right.
It's like, well, okay, well, looking back at myself, I didn't see how
Mm-hmm.
to be a pilot unless I joined the military. And if I joined the military to be a pilot, you're looking at 10 years
Mm-hmm.
of enlisting. To me, that was like signing my whole life to be in the military, and that wasn't something I wanted to do.
Right.
So at that point, I didn't see the other opportunities that were as possibilities for me. So pilot was out
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that's not true. As a mentor, I would help discover and uncover the other possibilities that exist, right? And say, okay, if this is true, if this is something that you really want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and you see what it's going to require of you, is this still something you want to do? And just continue to break it down from there. Well, what's that? If that's the goal, what's something you can do today to move you towards that goal? What's something you can have on the plan to do tomorrow, the next day, to move down that direction.
That beautiful. That big empty whiteboard. The last question is simply this, and I keep coming back to, it's beautiful. New, hung, gray, tons of opportunities. Folks, I saw the other night, there's also a myriad of very cool pens and markers that are a part of that too. But most importantly, I'll say you have them, right? As I know they're there. But I was going to say, but the question really becomes, what is in the cards for you? I don't even ask 10-year plans. I don't even ask, because it's like things evolve and change and morph, and that's good news often. But for you, what's next?
So, it being my birthday yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I use that day as a day of reflection, as a day to look at my life and say, hey, am I moving down the paths that I want to be moving down? Am I making the impacts that I want to be making? Am I leaving the legacy behind that I want to be leaving behind? And what came up for me yesterday was really stepping into the coaching world, stepping into like helping entrepreneurs figure out what that path is for them, or if they have a concept and an idea, is like, what are the tools and the pieces that I need? Because although, I have the emotional intelligence experience to life coach, to business coach, I've also had that scaling. I worked with P&G on some major projects, spent
one of the largest companies in America and some of their largest projects. So it's like, that's serious.
Millions and millions of dollars a week. So, handled some major accounts. So not only do I have that emotional intelligence aspect of things, I understand scale at scale, right? So what it means to scale and to operate at that level. So I can support from a business side and from a life side. And that to me is huge, because what I also want to start doing, and this is where my speaking is coming in, is my public speaking is talking to our youth about their opportunities that are in front of them today. So one of the conversations that I'm going to be having with that is on a YouTube channel that's available now. I'm starting to roll that out, and that's called AltRev Tech. AltRev Tech is alternative revenue leveraging technology. And that is really, how do you use technology to create revenue?
So AI and all that sort of stuff is like literally, okay, not to run from it, but maybe to run toward it. And
well, this right here, this is technology. This is like, how do we leverage this? Well, what was beautiful is COVID showed us what was possible when it came to working from home. I had been working from home for 5 years before COVID hit.
See, you had a crazy advantage. I didn't. I had my own company laptop, and I would travel a lot, but I always had a home base. So that freaked me out for a while. I think that just that you're able to educate people, that now have this like base of knowledge. I think it's beautiful that you do that. And so, hey, folks, we're also going to have several links to get to our man, Chris Eischen, which is also AltRev Tech, but also chriseischen.com, which then goes to, there's 2 ways to find you. What are the best ways that you want us to find you?
Well, chriseischen.com, that's the best, because everything's everything's in there.
Comprehensive, well told. Yep.
Yeah, I try, and there's more to come. I've got a whole template of updates that I'm going to be adding to the page. So you'll be seeing some things there, and you're going to be seeing some coaching stuff rolling out.
Fabulous.
That Craig and I have put together that I'm just really excited about, because this is all the stuff, and I love you really led into it at the beginning of our conversation.
Right.
These are all the things, the tools I wish I had when I first got started. Like if somebody would have handed me these things, it would have been like, oh,
how bad you're needed, how badly you're needed. And Chris, I think the number one thing is, I wanted to know, and thanks for making it really clear to me, like the weirdest things, which is like, always how do you push past obstacles, but really what it is it's you've pivoted so many times and you keep doing so, and you do it with grace and you do it with precision. And those skills, like I said, again, resilience really is the word that comes to my mind, is how teachable are they? And now I think I know the answer, which is quite, if it's coming from you. It's beautiful. Chris Eischen, I am overjoyed that we got this first round. Oh, I lied. There's one more question. Will you come back?
Yep, you got it.
Beautiful. And I feel happier already because there's definitely more to this story to be told. But folks, I feel, as I said again, you want a real arc to authenticity, we'll talk to Chris Eischen. And keep watching, listening, liking, sharing. Chris, hit the buttons again like you did at the beginning. I love that. Boom, boom, boom. Beautiful. And work with people that have the joy, that want to help. I'll leave you with this because it's the line that you said, Chris, that's just, like I said, helped me. I talk about hurt my heart, that really helped my heart, which is just keep asking the question. Just keep asking the question. Just keep asking it. It ain't intimidating. It's like you just want to know. You just want to know the answer. That's all. And I'm thrilled. So folks, we turned into another episode of Your Message Received. We are delighted to have you here. Chris Eischen, thank you so much. I acknowledge and honor you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Hey, folks, have a great rest of the day. Thanks for tuning in. And we will be back soon to drive more content through your front door. Have a great day, all. Be well. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.